I'm Wayne Carey, and this is The Truth Hurts.
Well, we're back for another episode of The Truth Hurts here this morning. Duck, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. You look fresh.
Do I?
I'm a lot fresher this week.
Oh, you would be too.
Well, I'm off the strong medication.
Geez, you were fired up last week.
The strong Panadol I'm on now.
I did see
right down to that.
I did see you have a coffee this morning though, a double espresso. It's a bit unusual.
Well, I don't even like the taste of it, but it does give you a little bit of a lift. So I've come all the way, believe it or not, from Broken Hill. You heard of Broken Hill?
I have, yes.
Very, very, you know what, a different town, a mining town. Tex Walker's hometown. Dean Solomon is also from Broken Hill.
Good bomber, yeah. Okay.
So there's about 22 Waynes that live in Broken, which I found very unusual. So I think per capita, more Waynes in Broken Hill, which sort of says a little bit about, let's be honest, Wayne's arguably the worst name in the world.
You spurred on a baby boom.
And you wouldn't believe, and you know what Tex Walker's dad's name?
Is it Wayne? Is it
Wayne Walker?
Well,
Wayne Walker, and he's a legend. North Broken Hill. So we went up there, been in the pipeline for a long time. So a young man by the name of Nathan, who's involved with the North Broken Hill Footy Club. By the way, they're not the North Kangaroos; they're the North Bulldogs. So I found that a little bit unusual as well. The other thing that's unusual about Broken Hill is they go off South Australian time.
in New South Wales?
But it's a New South Wales town. And they also, they go, their phone numbers are 08, not 02. So all South Australian, although it's a New South Wales town. It's a little bit unusual, but I tell you what, I visit that. They are the most impressive football club I've ever been to. You meant to say why?
Why, Duck?
I'll tell you why. The way they honour their past champions. So we had a past players function yesterday that they run every year, and they have a guest speaker. They've had a guest speaker for about the last 60 years, and I happened to be one of them yesterday. But they're 125 years old this year. What a remarkable club. And when I say remarkable, I'm talking about the current players, the young players that come through, the respect that they have for the players that have gone before. And then you've got the little kids, running around that are obviously the kids of the current playing group.
Yep.
And you just and that they stand in awe of their past greats. You see them help out. They all pack up after lunch. They, the current day champions, and I'm talking about a guy, Jaden Kelly's won 7 league medals. Heaps of grand finals for the footy club. He walks around pouring beers for the.
He's pouring the beers.
Yeah, so you don't just have your ladies in the canteen. They all get behind one another. It is quite incredible. And this function, which had 240 at it, and they have a top dog every year that gets inducted as the top dog. And if you get inducted as the top dog, well, you've done just about everything at that footy club. So you've obviously been either a great player, an administrator, whatever it is. But it's the highest honour that you can get. And Carl Berryman, he was the top dog that got inducted yesterday. And what a ripper. And then you hear their records. And a lot of these guys that played in that league, they went on to play SNFL. It was the 75 Premiership reunion. Back when the SNFL was as strong as the VFL. So just an amazing, I just couldn't get over the respect that, the younger ones had for the guys that have gone before them. And then, the guys that have gone before sort of can't understand probably a little bit about how the young ones behave these days. And also, in the last 11 years, I think it is 11 or 12 years, the girls have joined the competition. So they were there. It was just I've never seen so much love in a room at a footy club. So I
haven't seen you speak like this about it.
Well, that's what I mean. So I've been to a lot of footy clubs over the years, a lot of country clubs. I'd love to know, and anyone out there that is listening, send in and let us know about your particular footy club and whether that it has some sort of similarities. Because I would love to know these footy clubs that act and behave in this manner, because it was just unbelievable. I'm blown away by it, and I'm spreading the word because it was just so impressive. Manners, they are just incredible. And
the North Bulldogs in Broken Hill.
Of all the places, you would think that it's quite amazing. I mean, not exactly the most picturesque drive from Mildura to Broken Hill, mind you. It's pretty much nothing out there. You might see some emus, some wild goats, and some kangaroos. But it was, I had a great day. So that was once again my little weekend away.
Right in your element. Well, let's start straight in with some breaking news that's happening as we speak. Probably by the time our listeners are getting this podcast, Lance Franklin will have fronted the media, likely to announce his retirement. There's been reports that multiple reports that he has he's called time on his career following his calf injury on the weekend. I believe effective immediately, so he doesn't think he can get back, but that will play out. Your initial thoughts on that decision, because there was some discussion about playing on last week. Do you think it's the right call for Buddy?
I think it's the right call to retire. It's sad that he won't be able to have a farewell game. I mean, look, he's done everything in the game. He's the greatest forward in the 2000s onwards. There's no doubt about that. He will be a legend one day of the AFL. There's some great memories. The goals. He's played very differently to any other key position player that has kicked 1,000 goals. Nowhere near the marking player that the other great forwards, full forwards, they were just really strong marks. Ironically, the last few weeks, Buddy's marked the ball.
Been clunking
him better than he has in his whole career. But he played like a half-forward flanker. His athleticism, so very different to everyone else. I think one of the great memories, obviously, kicking his 1,000 goals.
That'll stick in my mind for my lifetime in terms of a footy moment. I mean, that was incredible. Insane that many people are on the ground.
I have to send an apology, but for whatever reason, Cale Hooker chased him.
Poor Cale.
And the head wobble.
There's going to be a lot of news reports tonight, Cale, I reckon.
The head wobble, and Buddy was just in third gear, just cruising away and just couldn't keep up. So that will stick in memory. The hurdle and the long goal.
Yep.
I think his long goals is a feature, his ground play, and also his field kicking.
Yeah,
I think it's really underrated. When he got up the ground, he used the ball so well. To do what he did at Hawthorn as a young man, kick over 100 goals as well. So, look, the guy has done absolutely everything, and superstar, and he'll get the accolades that he deserves. He'll probably get sick of it over the next couple of weeks or the next few weeks, but it's a career that deserves a lot of celebration.
He hasn't always loved the spotlight, has he, Buddy? But just on his record, 354 games, 1,066 goals, two flags, 8-time All-Australian, 4-time Coleman medalist, 13-time leading goal kicker at his respective clubs. And you mentioned those moments. I mean, the Cale Hooker one is iconic. I remember too his goal in the prelim against Collingwood. I think it might have been 2011 to put Hawthorn in front. They lost the game, but it was one where I think he was on Chris Tarrant. He was spinning towards the boundary, little banana dribbler along the ground. His athleticism is just, for a guy who's nearly 200 centimetres.
Yeah, he kicked a bag against Adelaide early in his career in a
elimination final. Yep.
Yeah, and that was sort of the making of the man. Yep. I reckon that was the start of him, shooting into stardom. And you just knew from that time on he was just going to be one of the greats of the game. And as I said, the word champion, great, get thrown around too easily or too quickly. We're already saying Nick Dacos is a champion. Well, he's not a champion yet. He's a super player. If he keeps playing like this for another 8 years, he'll be a champion. You get that title when you do it for a long period of time, not 2 years. You've got to do it for 8. But he's done it for, 12, 13, 14 years. So that's why he's a champion and he's a great of the game.
Now, his move to Sydney was a huge one at the time. There was, just come off.
Got underpaid in the end. I know. Look, he never, and people will say he never delivered the flag. He got them to he didn't get them to grand finals, but they got to grand finals. Maybe a little bit unlucky. Got injured early in one of them, and I think they limped in. So didn't deliver that. Put bums on seats. You think
they'd do that deal again 10 times.
Oh, yeah, well, 100% you would. It was a bold move at the time.
So funnily enough, 9-10-year deal at the time?
And funnily enough, Hawthorn got better without him, and he went to Sydney. And so what a great deal that ended up being. And, so for a lot of reasons, I think, well, he'll sit back and he can now sit back and, take all the compliments and be proud of what he's been able to achieve in his career.
From the other footy results on the weekend, you were with Tex Walker's dad, you said, so you would have been watching the showdown, I'd imagine.
Wayne Walker. A bit of a chip off the old block, Tex, too.
So he's got what?
Kick 7. We sat back because we also were there. We're at the footy club also on the Friday night. And for Tex to win the showdown medal, unbelievable. Kicked 7. 7-4 he kicked and gave away a few as well. So what a great game. It was an absolute beauty.
So on that game, the huge talking point was the concussion involving Alir Alir and Lockie Jones. So two Port Adelaide teammates collide. Lockie Jones ended up being subbed out with a migraine, not concussion, which I find staggering because generally with concussion comes a bad headache. And Alir Alir played on.
You've got to call it as you see it. And albeit I'm sitting in front of the screen, like most of us are sitting in front of the screen to watch the footy, he was out cold before he hit the ground, Alir Alir. So the fact that you can't, and when people say, how do you know he was out cold? Well, okay, I don't technically know, but you can generally tell by the way the body goes limp and the way he hit the ground. He had no control when the head clash occurred. He had no control of his own body when he hit the ground. The fact that you can't go through a concussion protocol after that, is that the report that there was no concussion protocol?
So that there was an initial head injury assessment, but they didn't go through then the proper
protocol.
Correct, yes.
That is ludicrous. That is unbelievable. And you know what the funny thing is? I was sitting there watching it with Wayne, and I actually said, I bet you he comes back on.
Because there was two. Do you reckon it made a difference that there was two of them, so they thought we can't sub them both out?
No, I said, I bet you he comes back on because he's so important to that team.
Yep.
And them taking nothing, I just find it astounding that you cannot go through the protocol. There's definitely something to answer for there.
So the AFL put out a statement yesterday. It was pretty softly said that their doctor will...
And that's as weak as pea.
So what would you do then?
Well, it's got to be followed up on. Why wasn't there a protocol? Why didn't he go through a concussion test? I mean, if it was the 23rd bloke on the list, would they have gone through the protocol? I mean, it really does. It throws up a lot of questions.
So is this do we fine Port Adelaide, or what's the
ramifications? I don't know what the consequences should be, but if they're going to take concussion seriously, or we're going to take, then there has to be a serious investigation into why there wasn't that protocol, in my opinion.
It does seem like a bit of a slap in the face when we've got guys for football actions with a tackle who are barely even hitting the ground, and they're getting suspended for...
Well, generally, and by the way, and I'm not, why they came to that conclusion, what I would love to hear why they thought it unnecessary to go through the protocol. So give us an answer. I think everyone should understand that, because as you said, some guys get a flea hits them on the head, and the doctor looks at it, or whoever looks at it, and says, "Oh no, he's got to come off because of the vision, not because of whether the player was concussed or not. They just go off vision. If you were to go off vision,
he's gone.
There is no way
can't come back.
There's no way he comes back onto the ground off vision, because that was a serious head clash. The body went limp, and he hit the ground. He needed help to stand up. Anyway, I watched this space.
Particularly serious in light of the interview you did last week with Greg Williams, and we'll have some of our listener comments later in the show. But you spoke to Greg about his health battles, and we've learned in the past 24 hours as well that Wally Lewis, the rugby league great as well, says he's got early onset of dementia. He believes it may be related to CTE and some brain injury.
Yeah.
So it is... I mean, it is rightfully...
Well, it's a serious thing. And when Wally was in his career, and he's obviously the king of rugby league.
I knew you wanted to get that in there, you idiot.
It just goes to show you that if it's not taken seriously, and the AFL is taking it serious, which is why this has to be investigated, what happened on the weekend. But just on Wally Lewis, have you ever met him?
I have met him once, I met him once.
Yeah.
He worked for Channel 9 for a long period of time.
Okay, so what did he say to you?
Oh, he didn't say much to me, but funny you bring that up, actually. I feel a bit bad for Tony Jones here. Tony said, this wasn't the time I met Wally, but Tony said, get on like a house on fire with Wally. We did some such coverage for whatever, and get on really well. And he called him up. He wanted him to do an interview for him. And he called up Wally and said, Wally, it's Tony Jones. How you going? And we had him on loudspeaker because he wanted to show how good mates he was with him. And Wally goes, who is it? Who? He goes, it's Tony. Who?
So Wally had no idea.
Yeah, so poor old Tony. So I shouldn't bring that up.
Well, I've met the great Wally Lewis, and it's a bit of a funny story. It's not that funny, but it's sort of an unusual place to
When you met him?
To meet the king. Yeah. So I was on the Gold Coast, and for those who remember back to our first podcast, it was when I was on the run, and I was living up on the Gold Coast because let's be honest,
yes.
if you're from everyone knows this story. If you're from South Australia or Sydney or Adelaide or somewhere, and you're on the Gold Coast, you're running from something. You're running from a relationship, money problems, the law, something. Anyway, I was up there. I think I might have been running from all three of those. So I was in the communal toilets near Moo Moo's. You would have heard of Moo Moo's, Broad Beach Waters.
Does it still exist? Does it?
Moo Moo, a great steak restaurant right in there, Broad Beach. A beautiful steak, obviously.
I was thinking nightclub for a second.
Moo Moo.
Okay.
Cow. Get it?
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, I
so
understand.
the only issue I have with all of those restaurants around there is they don't have their own toilets. So communal toilet.
Yes.
Anyway, I happen to be in there. I'm doing a leak and standing there minding my own business, and then the great Wally Lewis, and I don't know that he's walked up next to me at this stage, but he walks up and he's standing there next to me, and it's a pretty big sort of toilet. Anyway, as you do, I was sort of just standing there going through the motions, thinking about, where I'm going to go to after Moo Moo's. And you feel the presence of someone standing next to, and then, you sort of look over to sort of measure up. And anyway, I looked over and then as I sort of looked down, then I looked back up, and there's the great Wally Lewis. And I went, King? And he just looked straight at me and went, King?
Yeah. He did.
And so at this point in time, so it's just King. I thought, oh, how good's that? Like, he obviously, recognised me. So for him to say that, I was pumped. I thought, this is great. I'm going to go out now and, I'll run into Wally out there. And he didn't say anything else. It was just King, right? And we walked out, washed my hands, walked into I thought, he'll come up now and have a chat. Anyway, didn't say another word to me. But I was rapt that he knew who I was.
The acknowledgement was enough for you.
It was. But a very unusual place to meet him.
Absolutely.
I think I had him covered too.
I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to move on very quickly, in fact. I've lost my train of thought here after that. Just picturing you and the King standing next to each other. Anyway, the footy on the weekend. Now, you've been big on this, Duck.
Yeah.
Try and get some focus now, please.
By the way, let's talk about. We didn't actually talk about the issue of CTE with Wally.
Yeah.
It is a serious issue, and it is sad with Wally. And let's hope that because he's gone through, some stuff even on air, which you'd know, being a Channel 9 person. So yeah, I hope Wally gets through the tough time that he's going through at the moment, because he's a legend, Wally Lewis. He's an absolute. He's one of arguably the greatest player that's ever played the game. If he's not, he's in the argument. He's just a ripper.
The weekend's matches, a lot of upsets on the weekend. You've been big on how even the competition is now. 2 games between St Kilda in 5th, Gold Coast in 14th. What did you make of everything that happened on the weekend?
You know what? I love all of these people, especially Collingwood supporters. For all you Collingwood supporters out there, and this isn't having a go. Well, it is actually. And I've been strong on this. They sit 2 games clear on top of the ladder, Collingwood. And I've said this before. The Crows beat them. They beat the Crows by 1.2 points respectively. The Crows were 13th. They're now 12th on the ladder. That tells you the difference in this game. They got beaten by the Blues on the weekend. They've got a lot of close games that they've won. I just want to reiterate, this is the closest year we've had for a long time. I really think the only vulnerable team in the top 8 for me, and if you go on form, Dogs have been hot and cold. GWS are in ripping form. You won't often hear me do this.
Oh, what are you going to do?
I might have been wrong.
Are you okay? This is a medication talking again.
I might have got something wrong, so I'm prepared to make an apology.
I need to hear this.
I said, how long ago now? I reckon it was round 6 or 7. I declared that the Blues can't play finals. You know what? I got it wrong. I reckon the Blues prepared to say I'm wrong, although I won't say but, because that dismisses what I just said in saying I'm wrong.
Sounds like you're going to anyway.
Although I did pick the Blues to make the 8 at the start of the year.
Okay, here we go.
So I was wrong in round 6 or 5, but I'm actually invariably ended up right if they play finals. They are in ripping form.
Really interesting case, Carlton. So much pressure on Michael Voss. I want to... maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, but are there any Richmond 2017 similarities here? And hear me out before you answer the question. So Richmond, maybe different timeline. Richmond had come off a really disappointing 2016. They lost some players, but they went with Nankervis, Caddy, Prestia. No one really thought they were going to have an impact. They completely changed the way they played their footy with Jack as
sole forward.
Sole
big forward.
Yeah, and pressure around him. Now, Carlton, their resurgence maybe started before Harry Mackay got injured, but since he's gone down, they've been playing faster, they've been playing territory football, and they're just playing around Charlie. And I just wonder, I mean, is there Richmond similarities there? Are they better off without Harry? How do you get that?
Well, it's a great question. Look, they're a better team with Harry at full forward. I mean, when he's on, by the way, when he's not on, he can be a liability as well. But you're right. What's the turnaround? So I'll go off what Michael Voss has said in current weeks, the last couple of weeks. I think this has shocked the you-know-what out of Vossi as well. There's no magic pill that you just take. Apparently they went and sat around a bushfire. Confidence is an amazing thing in a football team. They lacked it. They now have plenty of it. Clearly the way they're playing is very different to the way they were playing earlier in the year. They're moving the ball quicker. They're getting it in there. They're giving their forwards a chance. And by playing that fast, moving footy and getting it in there, and then the form of a couple of players are really coming through. By the way, they've got more injuries than just about any other. They had some key players out on the weekend.
Yeah, Sam Moss wasn't there. Chera got injured during the game.
Exactly right.
Plenty of others.
So they've got a lot of upside. They played a full strength Collingwood. Full strength Collingwood, remember. So are they a danger team in the 8? Well, on current form, you'd have to say yes. GWS, exactly the same. The Crows, once again, I want to mention for a team outside the 8, they're just dangerous. Port Adelaide have now lost 3 in a row, so there's vulnerability there, just like there is, I think, with Collingwood, even though they sit, as I said, 2 games clear. The only team that I think on pure potential in that top 8, and they sit 5th on the ladder, is St Kilda, but they just they're hanging in there.
There was another scare yesterday.
And there's one reason for me, and it's not their ability on the team. Not often does a coach make this big a difference. Ross Lyon is the only reason why St Kilda are sitting in the 8.
You love Ross, don't you?
No, well, you've got to give credit where credit's due. They've also got some key components out of their team as well. They've had some really
Max King has missed large periods.
The big injuries.
Yep.
The captain also has not been near his best and missed some footy as well. So the Saints for me are the vulnerable ones in there that sit 5th, and they're there, like I said, because of Ross Lyon. Can Ross Lyon pull a rabbit out of the hat? Maybe not a premiership, but could they? It looks like they're finals bound now, which is a remarkable effort, I think. But they're the one, and the Dogs as well for their list. What are the Dogs? Where are the Dogs?
They've got a top 4 list to me. They should be in the top 4.
A lot, yeah.
They've lost 3 of their last 4 games now.
All the Poindexters out there that go through the analytics.
Are you calling me a Poindexter?
No, not a point. But all the guys that like their stats and does this, and they go through all the little.
I feel attacked here. I don't mind a stat.
But the Dogs, you're right. The Dogs are the ones that are. They're just so hot and cold, really hot and cold. But what I'm loving, and finish on this. This is a wide open premiership to win. It has similarities for me to 93. Way back in 1993, the baby Bombers ended up winning the flag. I thought that was a wide open season. I can't remember a year where it's been as real. So the top 4 for me aren't as big a standout in recent years. Like I said, I think all of those teams in the top 4 are vulnerable. And some in the bottom 4 can be hot and cold, but there's some teams in that bottom 4 right now that are running hot. So that's what I'm loving about this year.
One team that's finals hopes took a hit, but I mean, I guess they were I mean, they're still in the hunt. Richmond 2 points out of the 8. They're in 11th. It took a hit against Melbourne, a game that they were in front at different times.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about this from a coaching perspective. I'm going to be a bit maybe controversial here, but I'm a big believer in moments or decisions having huge impacts on results at different times. Doesn't happen every game, but there was in the last quarter, Ivan Soldo had held his own against Max Gawn for much of the game in the ruck. He was benched for a rest just to reload maybe halfway through the last quarter for 6 minutes. In that time, Max took control and Melbourne kicked 3 goals and effectively won the game in that moment. Went from Richmond maybe a goal ahead. If you're the coach...
Sometimes, you know what you have to do, Anton? You have to throw the little science book out the window. And, you know, all the people looking at their little computer, all the little Poindexters going, oh, you know, he's ran this far and he's done this and he's done that. Throw it out the window, because what you have to do, you clearly run him into the ground. You're being competitive at the moment, and then he goes off and Max Gawn dominates, and you lose a game. What? All because he reached his threshold, you know, because of some little computer that says he ran there. I mean, mate, keep him on the ground. It was a mistake. So they made that for me. That was a basic fundamental mistake, and you know they'll come back and, or they might, you know, I'm sure it'll be questioned over the week and whether it was a mistake or not. But I clearly thought that was the move that might have been the big difference.
So the controversial take that I've got on it, and this is not really my sort of area, but is it the type of decision that could cost an Andrew McQualter like the full-time?
Well, when you're the interim coach, it's arguably that, you know, it's a position that you always take, but you know, to be hired after that period, I mean, wins and losses. You know, if they win those games, and he's lost a couple of close ones now, won a couple of close ones as well, but if they win that one and then they win another one and they were to make the 8, then that goes a long way to him being employed as the senior coach. So of course it costs him.
The last game,
which is why if I was him, I wouldn't be listening to Poindexters that say bring him off.
The last game of the round was perhaps the most disappointing in many ways.
I don't know where I've come up with Poindexter, but it's my word of the week. Word of the week, yeah.
I didn't know if you were going to want to talk about this game. North Melbourne and West Coast. I actually I tipped West Coast too. I was worried about. You
tipped West Coast.
I was worried about North Melbourne. That's giving myself a pat on the back there. But you don't normally like talking about North that much, but you're not happy with that.
Being at North Broken Hill on the weekend, and yes, they're the North Broken Hill Bulldogs, but there are a lot of North supporters at this function, and they all want to know, you know, how and what's going on with the Kangaroos or North Melbourne. The thing about it's just been so volatile and so inconsistent from the time we celebrated when Alistair Clarkson got the job, and we thought, okay, this is we're off now. We got some draft picks. There's some green shoots. I mean, I think Wardlaw and Sheasel and these guys. I mean, there's some serious. You know, Larky's been, you know, had a consistent, a solid year. So you've got some players that now you can go to and watch. But has there actually been, other than those guys who, like I said, show some excitement, has there actually been improvement? I say not. Now, is it because of the Clarkson situation, you know, and you know, that's a situation that no one could envisage was going to occur. But they've arguably gone backwards. They certainly haven't made any ground this year. It's been a wasted 12 months for North Melbourne, in my opinion. So, you know. So how crucial is that next period now with Alistair back? Because Brett Ratton, I think, vacates that seat now. Yeah, clearly they have to. They're going to get draft picks. And by the way, if Ben Mackay wants to go, see you, Ben. I mean, he's inconsistent anyway. See you, Ben. Make sure, though, the pick that you get for him, you make sure that you make the most of that. You've got to get another Sheasel, got to get another Wardlaw. You've got to make that pick really count. And then obviously they get some picks as well, whether they get a priority pick, and you know, whether they do or they don't. They just have to make sure that the picks they do get, they make the most of them and add to that young talent list coming through. I mean, Bailey Scott, there's other example, Phillips and all these guys. Bailey Scott's a consistent player now, and you've got, and then there are others on that list. that have shown improvement this year, but in terms of a team performance, they really have let themselves down, I think. And there are reasons for it. Like I said, no one could envisage the Clarkson situation, but there's no way from Sonia Hood down that they could look at this year and say that they're happy with any component other than the ones I've just mentioned.
You brought up Will Phillips then. He was a topic of discussion among my mates yesterday. He's been playing some decent footy. He's been one who's maybe unfairly been maligned at different times. He had, I think, glandular fever. He was a high draft pick.
Yep.
They perhaps surprisingly selected him a few picks earlier than his initial projection. They overlooked Logan McDonald. Still very early, but do you have any regrets about that decision?
I think he's like you said. I think he's really coming into his own body now. And like you said, he's had some issues early on. Logan McDonald exactly hasn't gone on like, many people thought. So I think that's a still watch this space to see where that ends up.
So the Roos forward line, how are you feeling about that as an ex-forward and some? I mean, it's
just inconsistent.
Yeah,
and they've got others up there. Don't need to mention that that get accolades and some people within the landscape of the media pump up to be better than what they are. And the problem, and that's the problem that's the problem in this industry or in the industry is that, you play a couple of good games and you're a young talent and all of a sudden, your money is worth or you can demand money at another club worth more than what you're actually worth.
So who are you referring to at the moment?
There's plenty. The game has been littered with it. Okay. Ben, if he goes to Essendon, will get a better contract, I assume, than if he stays at North. I mean, there's plenty of examples about players' value, being skyrocketed on the back of potential, but doing bugger all.
Last night, you were getting you're obviously in Broken Hill. Did you catch any of the Logies? Last night. I'm gone a bit off topic here, but did you catch any of the Logies?
I actually did get into bed at about 8:30 and put on the Logies, believe it or not, but only because for those who are going, oh, duck, you can't watch the Logies. It is sort of cringeworthy a little bit, the Logies, but I turned it on.
Jeez, it dragged. Sam Pang I actually quite enjoyed.
Yeah, Sam Pang is one of the great talents, I reckon. I like I said, I didn't watch it. I was flicking between, and then when the cricket got washed out, I went back to the Logies and I watched. I wanted to see, the best sports coverage, and the State of Origin won the best sports coverage. I looked down and there was BT, who
I wasn't happy.
Well, I don't know whether I'm right or not. And the camera sort of flashed past, the Channel 7 table, which obviously BT was on. I sent him a text message, by the way, and said, "What are you doing at the Logies, you tosser?" And he messaged me back about 40 minutes later and said, "Yes, I am here, but what are you doing watching this crap?"
Have you been to the Logies before?
Yes, I have actually.
Yeah, okay. When was that? Recently or?
No, a long time ago. I think I might have been giving out the best sports coverage actually with John Eels.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but a long time ago.
Just okay. Yeah, I don't remember that. Must have
coverage. It was interesting. Well, it's a little bit. I love Todd's little Todd McKenna. How do you say his last name? McKenna.
Yeah, Todd McKenna. Yeah,
who I met when I did the full Monty. Yes. I like Todd. I thought he was very, very good. Yeah, he was very good. I got to know him with the full Monty. When do you remember when I?
I didn't watch that.
Shane
funnily
Jacobson
enough. Yeah. No, I know the show.
Yeah. Well,
one of your forays into different shows. Yeah, no,
that's not a reality show. That was done for a cause.
Yes. Another big night
a big cause, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Another big night on the box tonight. A huge night in Australian sport. We've got the final day of the Ashes, and although we've retained the Ashes, it would be great.
Back to the Logies.
Oh, you got another Logies?
Well, just back to the Logies because half the awards go to shows you don't even hear about. Like the Block missed out. And what about MAFS? If you're talking about reality TV shows, MAFS and the Block have the biggest audience, surely.
Are they the best?
By the way, I like MasterChef. I've always liked MasterChef, but it won the award. and the block and MAFS do huge numbers. I mean, MAFS was doing 2 million a night. I was one of them.
I don't know if the MAFS you describe as quality television, albeit there's a lot of people that watch.
Train wrecks. Anyway, I was surprised with a few of the winners, taking nothing away against MasterChef because I do like that as well. But I was just surprised. I like to guess who's going to win it, and I was pretty much wrong on every occasion, except for the State of Origin. I got the sports one right.
Well done.
Anyway, sorry, Bobby.
Tonight, final day of the Ashes. Would be better to win 3-1. Stuart Broad, his final test.
Been a superstar.
He's been a great villain too, hasn't he, in sporting terms for Australian cricket?
Has he been a villain?
Well, he nicked it to slip and didn't walk. He's always played up to the fact that he's one of our biggest rivals.
What a competitor, though. What a player.
You're a bit of a villain.
Were you
a bit of a pantomime villain to opposition supporters?
Probably, yeah.
Did you ever play up to that?
I told you, I've got a class action against the AFL for all the bullying I received.
Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think about it though, or did you ever play up to it?
No. If anything, you thrive off the back of being, and I think Stuart Broad's been a great example of that. In my time watching cricket, when I was a kid, or teenager, Richard Hadley always seemed to be the villain. When we played the Kiwis, you're probably a little bit too young.
Yeah, a bit before my time.
What's funny about that is the great West Indian bowlers, they were never, even though they were they were just. You wouldn't want to be getting in behind Joel Garner and these guys. They're just unbelievable players and dominated Australia during that period. Yet they were never villains.
Yeah,
we love the West Indians. Clive Lloyd and Viv Richards. I mean, what was ironic about that time is I wanted to be the greats of the Steve Wars and the Borders and these guys, and we all wanted to be Dennis Lilly as a fast bowler, but. I wanted to be Viv.
Yeah.
Chew the chewy gum.
Yeah. Just have a certain swagger.
Just wear the cap out. You don't wear the helmet. You just put the cap on. I mean, he was. You know why? Because I think they were so cool.
Yeah.
They couldn't be villains. They were just too cool.
The one I love was Curtly Ambrose. He was a bit more. He was a bit more recent than some of those other guys. He had a few spats with different players. Dean Jones and the wristband, and Steve Warey had some. But he was.
But they were never villains.
No, he wasn't a villain. No, but he was bloody good bowler.
We'll talk about other sports. What a night we have tonight. And the greatest soccer player in the world at the moment, female soccer player, Sam Kerr, who I think is under, when I say under pressure, she won't view it like this, but we're going to sit on our seats tonight and watch the greatest female soccer player go about her business. And I think, arguably, she's under the sort of pressure that Kathy Freeman was under at the 2000 Olympics in Sydney.
That's huge. That's big pressure.
Well, she was the favourite,
Kathy
Freeman, to win that 400. Great call by Bruce McAvaney, and she got up and won. But the pressure that she had a whole country on her back, and I reckon Sam Kerr has got the whole country on her back tonight. It is going to be unbelievable. I hope her calf holds up.
Yeah, so she's missed the first 2 games with a calf injury. Yeah, There's been a lot of secrecy around whether she starts or not.
I've met her mum and dad and spoken to her a couple of times over the years, and she's just she's a superstar. She's a superstar of the world. And, we put all our hope, well, not all our hopes, because we're a very good, we've been a really good team for a little while now, but we need our leader.
So you're saying play her no matter what?
Oh, well, you've got to take the risk because you've got to win tonight. So I just hope the calf holds up. But what an excitement that I think tonight. I think we're all excited just to see her, and hopefully, like I said, her take her place, and she is fit because this is going to be something to watch. And I don't know what time that game starts, but if I didn't have my shoulder in a sling and still on strong Panadol, I'd be going to watch that game.
Yeah, down at Amy Park, and we pack down there.
100%.
They pack out the G if they obviously they can't schedule it there with everything. That's
you would go and watch that game.
Yeah,
and I'd be watching that game over the Ashes. There you go.
Yeah,
that's how much Sam Kerr has over this country. That's how good she is.
It's an interesting point you bring up about Kathy Freeman in 2000. I want to know what other Australians have faced that sort of pressure at times. Maybe in Ash Barty at the Australian Open. I mean, the Shark, he didn't always handle...
Well, the Shark, he gets criticised too harshly. He got beaten by some freak shots, the Shark.
He did.
He was number one in the world for so long. There's a lot of potters out there for Greg Norman and say he choked. He might have stiffened up in a few in a couple, but like I said, there were some amazing shots that beat Greg Norman. He's one of my heroes, so I don't pot him.
Now we're going to go to our listener comments now. I'm going to expand this section a little bit because the comment section on our recent podcasts has just exploded.
Has it?
Yeah, we've just been.
Oh, I know it has. I've been reading it. I'll tell you what, you're getting a lot of love. Anton's getting. Anton's getting a lot of love.
I think people are getting a lot of enjoyment out of the way you pronounce my name. I'm just going to read through a few here. I'm going to start with, so the most recent one you did was your interview with Greg Williams. So this was from Vernon. Great interview, Wayne. Never heard Diesel being so articulate. Greg's not as flashy as the Wiz, Warwick Kappa, but far less modest if that's possible.
Who's less modest? Greg.
Yeah, so he's suggesting...
He bought his medals in. Yeah. Not a lot of modesty in that. No, Greg... It's funny because I have had a lot of people come up to me and ask me about that, and there are a lot of Greg Williams fans out there that think Greg Williams is certainly in the argument of being the greatest player that's ever played, or certainly the greatest on baller that's ever played our game, and he certainly has the credentials to claim that. And if you were to ask Greg that, he would agree.
Yeah, Aussie in Texas here. Great interview.
Texas.
No, Aussie in Texas. That's his handle. Great interview, Hart. I love Diesel, the original Fig Jam, but geez, he could back it up and then back it up some more. As a Carlton supporter, I had great memories. Then from Kev Aldrich, did Diesel win more awards or did the Duck win more awards?
Well, I won more All-Australians, and so I won more of the team awards, best and fairest All-Australians.
Does it ever bother you that you never won a Brownlow?
Does it?
Yeah.
I don't rate the Brownlow, you know that. You know why? Because I never won one.
But honestly, doesn't piss you off?
Of course it doesn't. No. Lee Matthews never won a Brownlow. Yeah. Ted Whitten never won a Brownlow.
Okay.
Jason Dunstall never won a Brownlow.
Well, speaking
I'll tell you who did though. Shane Woden.
Oh, now we don't need to denigrate those guys.
No, I'm not denigrating. No, there's no such thing as a bad Brownlow medalist.
Yes.
Because you only need to play 12 good games in 1 year to win one. Those other players that I mentioned were champions over a long period of time. So the Brownlow gets too much credit.
Now, speaking of Jason Dunstall, the one topic that really did go absolutely bonkers, and I think they've responded to your passion that you showed at the start of the show last week when we were talking about...
the Poindexter that came up with a theory.
We were talking about forwards and comparing... Yeah, so this person had compared Buddy's goals to Plugger and so on, and said that adjusted for their eras that Buddy had scored more goals supposedly, and we were talking about comparing eras, and I was suggesting it was harder to play forward now. You said it was harder, and so I'll read you some of the comments. I will say there were quite a few on your side here. So, agreed, Duck. Speedy recovery to you personally. I can't split Coventry, Dunstall and Lockett. Plugger was my fave when he plays for the Saints. It was also funny watching BT go right off his head when he played for the Pies. Best of luck with your recovery. That was from Meow. Agree with Duck. We actually have great. Do we actually have great full forwards these days at all?
No, we don't. Well, when I say no, we don't. I think Jack Riewoldt. I think Tex Walker. Obviously Tom Hawkins, and Tom Hawkins and Tex Walker are great examples. They've got better as they've got older, which I think also shows you a little bit about the competition. Obviously, we have more teams now, but I'm liking these comments because I'm agreeing with them.
Well, I'm starting off with the ones that agree with you. That was from Skills Machine, by the way. Another one here. This is from Heath Wilkie. Anton hasn't explained why the forwards find it harder other than the game's changed. What he should have said was the zone defence and numbers back has made it more difficult.
Okay, well, what was his name again?
Heath Wilkie.
Heath, I'll give you a big tip, Heath. When Tony Lockett and Jason Dunstall were playing, and you're talking, and Gary Ablett Senior, I'll tell you what used to happen. The back pockets would stand on the inside of their players, the halfback flankers would stand on the inside of their players, and the ruckman would stand straight in front of all of those full forwards that I just mentioned. They were all there to do one thing, and that was to stop one player. So all of the zones that we play now, guess what? Yeah, they are. So they play better defense. They play as a zone. They were specifically designed to stop the one player. I mean, the 96 grand final, we played Glenn Archer at formerly known as, now Danielle, but formerly known as Dean Laidley, all played in front of Tony Lockett that day. And he had Mick Martin. Guess what? He still kicked 6. Give us a spell, Heath.
I'm going to keep going here. Now, this is Nath 4,500. Dunstall was my idol growing up, but the distribution of goals is clearly different these days. It's been a good 15 years since teams focused on their attacks through full forward and centre forward. Secondly, average scoring levels are down. Teams are more concerned about defence.
They are. Do we go to watch players tackle? No.
Finally, on that topic, Alex Marsh. Can't agree at all. Put Peak Buddy among the 90s era and he would have broken all records very comfortably.
Yeah, Buddy would have got his head knocked off. You could chop the arms. Look, the game's different. Let's celebrate the great Buddy Franklin for who he is now. Don't try to come up, Poindexter's trying to come up with bloody Pythagoras theories, whatever you say, to come up to say he was better than those guys.
Now, just before we do go, there were a few concerned about both of our health. Last week, you were fresh from surgery. I had my back issue. A few blokes have actually said here, no, I'm just a bit of love for me. It's from Daniel. I feel Ayrton's pain. He actually said my name properly. Thank you, Daniel. My back did the same trimming the front hedge years ago. It felt like I was getting shot in the back. Yeah. That's it. I
get the feeling, and to all of our listeners and watchers, I get the feeling you might be a bit of a hyperchondriac.
Now, Lunch, he said, I've had that same back pain a couple of times.
You bounced in here today.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seemed fine today, so we've just got better.
Well, that's what happens with the spasm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's debilitating at the time. And just one more. Simon Knowles said, wow, the Duck has sure come out of his shell this week. I'd love to sit down and have a beer, watch a game of footy with the great man. Loving the podcast.
We might be able to. We might come up with something later in the year. We might run some sort of competition where we get our listeners and watchers involved, and we'll do something where we can, I don't know. Might be sit down, watch a game. Might be go to a game. Might be, do something.
I look forward to that, Duck. It's been great speaking to you again this week on the Truth Hurts. Big night ahead.
Good show. Plenty going on. I can't wait. How many rounds we got to go for?
It's a great question. I'd have to look at
I think it's 4. It's 5, actually. But a lot to look forward to. As I said, a few people jumped on the bandwagon, by the way, about the Coleman medal. Tex Walker kicking 7. Charlie kicking 6. Guess what? Wide open. Tex playing against West Coast in round 24.
Watch this space. I'll see you again soon.